Elon Musk, the billionaire known for his audacious ventures and unfiltered remarks, made an entrance that evening at Echelon Prime, Austin's most exclusive restaurant. His arrival was as commanding as his reputation. Every head in the room turned, every conversation hushed. Yet, Musk was about to encounter something even he couldn't predict, a waitress whose hidden talent would leave him utterly speechless. The restaurant, a modern marvel of sleek design and cutting-edge robotics, was the embodiment of opulence. Guests dined under the soft glow of chandelier-like LED installations while a self-playing grand piano in the corner added an air of elegance. Amid this backdrop, Amara, a waitress with an air of quiet resilience, moved gracefully between tables. She was unassuming, with deep brown eyes that hinted at dreams far beyond her present reality. For Amara, Echelon Prime was a temporary stop, a means to an end. Born and raised in a small Alabama town, her love for music had been her lifeline, her passion, and her escape. The old second-hand piano in her childhood home had been her sanctuary, its worn keys bearing witness to countless hours of self-taught melodies. But dreams alone couldn't pay the bills, and her journey had led her here, working double shifts to save for her shot at Austin's prestigious conservatory. That night, as Musk and his entourage settled into a prime table, the restaurant's atmosphere shifted. Musk, known for his probing curiosity and often irreverent sense of humor, quickly became the focal point of the room. His sharp wit and commanding presence drew attention like a magnet, and even the seasoned staff felt a jolt of nervous energy. Amara, however, focused on her work. To her, Musk was just another high-profile diner. But as she approached his table with her usual composure, she couldn't ignore the way his gaze lingered on her, sharp and assessing. Elon Musk in my section, she thought, forcing herself to remain calm. Just another table. Just another customer. Little did she know, this was no ordinary encounter. Musk's attention was not casual, it was deliberate. Something about her had sparked his curiosity, and he wasn't one to let an opportunity for entertainment slip by. As the evening unfolded, Musk held court at his table, his voice rising above the soft hum of the restaurant. He regaled his companions with stories of innovation, peppered with his signature humor. Amara continued her rounds, her pace steady, her focus unwavering. But as she served his table, she couldn't shake the feeling that Musk's gaze followed her every move. Finally, as she returned to take their main course orders, Musk leaned back in his chair, his tone casual, but his words anything but. "You look like someone with hidden talents," he remarked, glancing at her name tag. "Amara, is it?" She nodded politely. "Yes, sir. Is there something I can get for you?" Musk's lips curled into a faint smile. "Tell me, Amara, what do you do when you're not serving tables? Surely someone like you has something special they're working on." His words, though seemingly light-hearted, carried an undercurrent of challenge. Amara hesitated. "I play the piano," she replied softly, her voice steady but cautious. "A pianist?" Musk's eyebrows lifted, his interest piqued. "Fascinating. Why don't you play something for us? That piano over there could use a proper musician." The dining room quieted, and all eyes turned to their table. Amara felt the weight of the room's attention settle on her. Musk's tone wasn't inviting, it was daring. He wasn't asking her to play, he was testing her. Amara's heart raced. "I'm just here to work tonight," she replied, hoping the conversation would end there. But Musk wasn't about to let her off so easily. "Oh, come on," he said, his voice rising slightly, drawing more attention. "A true artist doesn't need a stage to share their gift." Or, he paused, his smirk widening. "Are you afraid you'll disappoint us?" The challenge lingered, heavy and electric. Amara clenched her fists, her mind racing. She glanced at the grand piano across the room, gleaming under the soft lights, then back at Musk. His expression was one of smug expectation, as if he had already decided she wouldn't rise to the occasion. And then, in the silence that followed, Amara heard a memory, her mother's voice from years ago. "Never let anyone make you small. You are bigger than their doubt." Taking a steadying breath, she made her decision. "Fine," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I'll play." The room buzzed with anticipation as Amara turned toward the piano. Each step felt heavier than the last, carrying the weight of fear, defiance, and something stronger, determination. The dining room seemed to hold its breath as Amara made her way to the piano. The soft glow of the overhead lights reflected off the sleek black surface of the grand instrument, casting her in an almost ethereal light. Conversations had halted, forks paused mid-air, and even the robotic servers seemed to retreat into the background. Every eye was on her, and at the center of it all sat Elon Musk, leaning back in his chair with an air of smug satisfaction. For Amara, each step felt like an eternity. Her palms were damp, her heart pounding against her ribs. This wasn't the warm, familiar setting of her childhood church or the community halls where she had once played with joy and abandon. This was a hostile stage, a battlefield where the stakes weren't just about music but about dignity, about proving that she was more than a spectacle for someone else's amusement. As she slid onto the piano bench, her fingers hovered above the keys, trembling slightly. She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath to steady herself. The weight of Musk's gaze bore down on her, and she could hear the faint murmurs of his entourage, no doubt expecting her to falter. But she pushed those thoughts aside, her mother's words echoing in her mind. Never let them see you doubt yourself. Behind her, Musk's smirk deepened. "Let's see what you've got," he said, his voice cutting through the silence like a knife. Amara's hands lowered onto the keys, her fingertips brushing the cool, polished surface. She chose her piece carefully, a soulful rendition of Clair de Lune by Debussy. It was a melody she knew by heart, one that had carried her through countless late nights and moments of doubt. The first notes were soft and hesitant, almost fragile, like a whisper breaking through the tension in the room. A few diners shifted in their seats, and someone cleared their throat. Musk leaned forward slightly, as if to get a better view, his expression unchanged. But Amara didn't let herself look at him. Instead, she focused entirely on the music, letting the notes flow from her fingers like a stream finding its way through a forest. The hesitance in her playing began to melt away as she found her rhythm. The melody grew bolder, fuller, wrapping itself around the room. The delicate strains of the piano seemed to weave an invisible thread, drawing in the audience one by one. Conversations ceased entirely. The clinking of glasses and silverware faded into the background. All that remained was the music and the story it was telling, a story of struggle, resilience, and unyielding hope. As the piece progressed, Amara's confidence surged. Her hands moved with a grace that belied the storm of emotions within her. Each chord she struck seemed to speak volumes. The sacrifices her mother had made, the nights she spent practicing on a piano that was barely in tune, the countless dreams she had pushed aside to survive. She poured her soul into the performance, every note a confession, every crescendo a declaration. By now, the atmosphere in the restaurant had transformed. What had started as a moment of mockery had become something entirely different. Diners who had been in different moments ago were now riveted, their faces softening with awe. Some leaned forward in their seats, while others exchanged glances, silently acknowledging the power of what they were witnessing. And then there was Musk. For the first time all evening, his confident smirk had vanished. He sat motionless, his piercing eyes fixed on Amara, his expression unreadable. The man who thrived on control and spectacle now found himself rendered silent by the very person he had tried to test. The music swelled to its climax, the final notes soaring through the room like a bird taking flight. Amara's fingers danced across the keys, her movements a perfect blend of precision and passion. And then, with one last lingering chord, the piece came to an end. The sound hung in the air for a moment, like the echo of a thunderclap, before fading into silence. Amara sat frozen, her hands still resting on the keys, her chest rising and falling as she caught her breath. The room remained quiet, as though the audience was collectively processing what they had just experienced. Then, slowly, the applause began. It started with a single clap, hesitant but sincere. Then another, and another, until the entire restaurant erupted into thunderous applause. Diners rose from their seats, clapping with a fervor that filled the space with warmth and admiration. Amara turned slightly, her eyes scanning the crowd, and for the first time, she saw not spectators but witnesses, people who had truly seen her, who understood her story without words. Behind her, Musk raised his hands and clapped, but the sound was slow and hollow compared to the others. His expression was a mix of shock and discomfort, as though he couldn't quite decide whether to admit defeat or maintain his air of superiority. For all his brilliance and bravado, Musk had been silenced, not by wealth or intellect, but by the raw, undeniable power of authenticity. Amara stood slowly, her knees trembling but her back straight. She faced the audience with a small, humble nod, her lips curving into the faintest of smiles. It wasn't pride she felt, but relief. Relief that she had reclaimed her voice, that she had faced the challenge and emerged stronger. And yet, as she met Musk's gaze across the room, she saw something unexpected. His eyes, though still guarded, carried a flicker of something new: respect. As the applause thundered around her, Amara stepped away from the piano, her heart pounding with the aftershocks of the performance. She had poured her soul into every note, but the vulnerability of the moment still lingered. For a brief second, she questioned whether she had truly silenced the doubt that had hung in the air before she played. But then, she saw the faces in the crowd. An older couple in the corner wiped tears from their eyes. A group of younger diners whispered excitedly among themselves, pointing toward the piano as if Amara had just performed a miracle. Even the robotic servers, though incapable of emotions, seemed to pause in their tracks, their mechanical hums replaced by an almost eerie stillness. Amara's colleagues, who had gathered near the kitchen doors, exchanged smiles and nodded subtly in her direction. Their pride in her was unmistakable, their applause the loudest in the room. One of them, a server named Sarah, mouthed the words, "You crushed it," and gave her a discreet thumbs up. Then there was Elon Musk. Still seated, Musk clapped slowly, his expression betraying a rare mix of surprise and discomfort. His confident smirk, the one that had dominated his face earlier, was entirely gone. Instead, his lips pressed into a thin line, and his eyes fixed on Amara with an intensity she couldn't quite decipher. "Well," Musk said finally, breaking the tension as the applause began to die down. His voice was louder than necessary, as if he needed to reassert himself in the wake of the room's collective awe. That was unexpected. His words hung in the air, their tone somewhere between admiration and awkward acknowledgement. The smattering of chuckles from his entourage felt forced, their usual sycophantic energy now muted. Musk leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the edge of the table, as if searching for the right thing to say. "You've got quite the talent," he continued, his voice measured. "Truly impressive. I suppose brilliance can emerge from the most surprising places." Amara tilted her head slightly, studying him. His compliment, though phrased as praise, carried an undercurrent she couldn't ignore. It wasn't humility. It was a grudging acknowledgement, weighed down by his reluctance to cede the spotlight entirely. The room, still abuzz with murmurs of admiration for Amara, seemed to sense this too. "Thank you," Amara said, her voice steady. She met Musk's gaze directly, her expression calm but resolute. There was no trace of arrogance in her tone, but there was also no submission. She wasn't about to let him reduce her performance to a mere anomaly, a passing amusement. Musk cleared his throat, the silence around their exchange growing heavier. "You're clearly talented," he added, gesturing toward the piano. "Have you considered doing something more with it?" Amara's lips curved into a faint smile, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I've always planned to," she replied, her words deliberate. "It's not just about talent, though. It's about having the opportunity." The subtle sting in her response wasn't lost on Musk, whose expression shifted ever so slightly. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Opportunity," he repeated, as though testing the word. His entourage exchanged uneasy glances, unsure whether to interject or remain silent. The room had begun to settle back into its rhythm, the clinking of glasses and soft murmurs of conversation filling the space once more. But the energy had shifted, and everyone, diners and staff alike, seemed to hold a newfound respect for Amara. What had started as an attempt to put her on the spot had transformed into a moment that none of them would forget. Amara, sensing the shift, took a small step back from the table. She had no intention of prolonging the exchange. Her performance had spoken louder than any words could, and she wasn't about to let Musk regain control of the narrative. "Enjoy the rest of your evening," she said, her tone polite but firm. With a nod, she turned and began walking back toward the kitchen, her posture tall and her steps deliberate. As she moved through the dining room, diners stopped her to offer words of encouragement and admiration. An older woman reached out and gently touched her arm. "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard," she said softly, her eyes glistening with tears. "Don't ever stop." A younger man at another table chimed in, his voice brimming with enthusiasm. "You've got a gift," he said. "Whatever you're chasing, keep going. You're going to make it." Amara thanked them with quiet humility, her heart swelling with gratitude. Each word felt like a small victory, a validation of the countless sacrifices she had made to pursue her dream. But even as she accepted their praise, her mind was already shifting, thinking about what came next. Behind her, Musk remained seated, his gaze following her retreating figure. His fingers drummed lightly on the table, his expression unreadable. Whatever had transpired in that moment, it was clear that Amara had left an impression on him, one he wasn't likely to forget. The applause had quieted, but the energy in the room lingered as Amara returned to her station. Musk and his entourage remained seated, their usual lively chatter replaced by an awkward silence. The once dominant figure seemed lost in thought, his sharp gaze now softer, fixed on the piano across the room. As the group rose to leave, Musk hesitated by the grand piano. His entourage paused, exchanging curious glances. "She's got something rare," he said almost to himself before walking out without his usual fanfare. The moment felt strange. Elon Musk, a man known for controlling every space he entered, leaving quietly, humbled not by wealth or intellect but by the power of music. Amara, watching from the corner of the room, allowed herself a small, private smile. It wasn't triumph she felt. It was relief. She hadn't played to prove anything to Musk or anyone else. She had played for herself. The following evening, Amara sat at her old upright piano, replaying the events in her mind. The restaurant's applause, the kind words from patrons, and even Musk's hesitant respect felt like a turning point in her life. Her fingers glided over the keys, the music flowing more freely than it had in years. For the first time, she felt a sense of possibility she hadn't allowed herself in so long. Then her phone buzzed. Startled, she glanced at the unknown number and answered hesitantly. "Hello." "Hi, Amara. This is David. I'm a music producer from Nashville. I was at Echelon Prime last night and heard you play. You have something truly special. I'd love to help you record a demo." Amara's breath caught, her mind racing. She managed to reply, "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," David said warmly. "Let's get your music out there." Amara's lips curled into a smile as she whispered, "Yes." The call ended, leaving her staring at her piano. What had once felt like a distant dream now seemed just within reach. Weeks later, Amara stepped into a cozy recording studio in downtown Austin, her heart racing with excitement and nerves. David greeted her warmly, gesturing toward a piano in the center of the room. "This is your space now," he said. "Play something that feels true to you." Amara took her seat at the piano and let her fingers dance across the keys. The melodies she poured out carried all the emotion, resilience, and hope that had defined her journey. David listened intently, nodding with approval. "You're going to make waves," he said. "This is only the beginning." Meanwhile, word of her story had spread. The tale of the waitress who had stunned Elon Musk with her talent became a viral sensation. Bringing her attention, she never saw it but welcomed as a chance to share her art. One evening, she returned to Echelon Prime, not as a server, but as the star performer. Her hands glided over the same grand piano, her music filling the room with warmth and inspiration. Among the diners was Musk, seated quietly in a corner. He listened intently, his usual commanding presence subdued, replaced by quiet respect. As the final note rang out, Amara stood to applause once more. This time, she felt no fear, no hesitation, only purpose. She had reclaimed her dream, and nothing could take it from her.